Doug Ford was ushered into power in part due to his promise to scrap the carbon tax, and he put it to a legal challenge, and all the staffers knew it wasn't going to work. Everyone knew it was just, politics. It was kicking a problem down the road. And 3 years later, millions of tax dollars wasted, we finally get the inevitable result.
Hello, dear viewers, and welcome back to another stunning and exciting episode of This Week in Canada. My name is Roberto Wakerl Cruz. With me once again is my fantastic British co-host, Nico Johnson. Nico, why don't you say hello, my dear friend?
Hey guys, how are we? What an exciting episode we have in store for you today. A bit depressing, but I suppose relying on your political persuasion. We're going to be talking about the carbon tax. Isn't that right, Bobby?
Yeah, so as we are filming this, there's a lot of news going on about the Supreme Court ruling the carbon tax to be legal in Canada. It was a much anticipated decision. It was a split decision, actually. It went 6-3 in favor of it being legal. So all the news that you've heard over the last several years about Trudeau's carbon tax, about it coming to fruition, will it, won't it, especially Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Alberta governments fought that this was unconstitutional and wanted to make their own say, because they're their own provinces, wanted provincial jurisdiction. It's happening. It seems like this is happening so long as the Trudeau government remains in power. So this was huge news, Nico. I don't know, were you surprised out of the gate by this decision?
No, I wasn't. And actually, I find the whole thing rather depressing. Look, this was a foregone conclusion. I remember when I was working in Ontario government in 2018, Doug Ford was ushered into power in part due to his promise to scrap the carbon tax, and he put it to a legal challenge, and all the staffers knew it wasn't going to work. Everyone knew it was just, politics. It was kicking a problem down the road. And 3 years later, millions of tax dollars wasted, we finally get the inevitable result. It seems pretty clear to me, and obviously we can talk about the carbon tax in a bit more detail later, but just on the sort of macro scale, it seems pretty clear to me that the only way a conservative or the carbon tax is going to get scrapped is if there is a conservative government. It's not going to happen under Liberals, and the only way the carbon tax will get scrapped is through, a legislative amendment. It has to be a bill through Parliament, and because the Liberals have a majority and support of the NDP, it's going to be pretty tough to do. Pretending and telling your supporters, telling the voter base that this was ever going to work out, that this was an effective solution, is, I think, a pretty thin lie. I think, I'm disappointed, I think, most strongly with Jason Kenney, who seems to be in Alberta to run solely on the mandate that he would scrap the carbon tax through this, judicial appeal. It didn't work. Now, what is he going to do? It's been a huge waste of time. We've made no step forwards in solving what is a pretty difficult issue here. I mean, we need to keep jobs in Alberta, and, it's just been games, total games. Bobby, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you did cover a lot with what you were saying there. We've had a lot of reaction from across the political spectrum on this matter. Basically, every politician who had some sort of stake in this made a comment today. Obviously, we had a comment from the Green Party's Anime Paul, clearly in favor of the decision. We had the environment minister, who I think his name is Steve Wilkinson. Let's just play a short clip, like 5 seconds of him boring you to death.
Today's Supreme Court decision reaffirms that carbon pricing is integral to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and responding to the existential threat of climate change.
He is one of the most monotone weirdos. I don't know, Nico, have you ever seen Fairly Odd Parents? The Pixies in Fairly Odd Parents? Yeah, he reminds me of just that kind of super boring suit.
Go me. Go me. It's my birthday.
Anyway, so he was obviously in favor of this, but then we had the conservative leaders, Jason Kenney, who went up there and said that this was in conflict with the Constitution, 92A of a whole bunch going on there. Aaron O'Toole coming out and saying that they will repeal the Trudeau carbon tax while at the same time fighting climate change. it's kind of a confusing mixed message kind of thing, and this has actually been a thing that's been plaguing the conservatives since last week's convention. They've gotten a lot of negative media about how they're going about climate change and whether their base supports climate change. Or, we have Aaron O'Toole upsetting a lot of the base by saying that, I'm the boss, I say climate change exists, we're a party that believes in climate change. I don't know, man. It's a pretty interesting thing. Oh, and of course, Scott Moe saying something similar, saying it was the wrong decision. I think Jason Kenney and, like you were saying, Doug Ford, these politicians that built a large amount of their career, a lot of their campaigning against the carbon tax, saying that it wasn't going to go through, they were going to die on this hill. I think it's a big shot to them. I think it's a huge blow to their campaigning, and it looks like it's another blow to Jason Kenney, who is already one of the least popular MPs, or provincial leaders in the country, polling out something like 40%. I don't really see how this can go well. What I'm interested in is kind of seeing where the Conservatives go from here, because what, like you kind of alluded to, how does the Conservative Party navigate between being a party that is against the carbon tax while still demonstrating themselves as a group that is like forward thinking on the environment and trying to win votes and prove that they're not like climate change deniers? I don't know. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. What's your opinion on that, man?
Well, this is very complicated. I think all of us will agree, all the viewers will agree on two things, I think. Firstly, that the carbon tax disproportionately affects rural, quite poor Canadians, which is to say non-liberal voters, right? We know that. Secondly, we know that the carbon tax isn't particularly effective when it comes to doing what its intended purpose is, which is, curbing carbon emissions. People don't stop using it because it's a bit more expensive, because, the people who use this tax have to use some sort of fuel and carbon happens to be available. So, and studies out of BC have proven that. But what it seems to me is that the Conservative Party, and a lot of people said this following the 2019 election, and I agree with this, it must be said, is that you cannot win a general election in Canada unless you have some effective, plan to tackle climate change. It's a matter of fact. And I know climate change is a difficult issue, particularly in Western Canada, because it ties into, jobs, and Western Canada has been seriously affected. And it's not just, they're getting rid of the oil industry. That actually matters. It's a big employer. And when there's unemployment, there's suicides, there's addiction, there's broken families. It's a horrible, horrible thing. But what we need to see from the Conservative government is a climate plan that doesn't just reject the carbon tax, but actually has, some strong suggestions, an actual plan to tackle this issue. And I think the only way, the actual Conservative way for dealing with this, and I can't believe this hasn't been, suggested yet, is basically an innovation fund. Let's make the biggest sort of carbon tackling innovation fund. Let's let capitalism solve the climate issue. This is how we've always gotten out of problems. It's innovation. And the fact that people want to go back and say, well, we can't fly, we can't trade with each other, we can't, get oil out of the ground, and saying that's how we're going to solve climate change is pretty farcical in my opinion. But whatever the case, there needs to be some changes. And I think the Conservative Party needs to grow up a little bit. The membership needs to accept that climate change is a fact, and they need to accept that they're never, ever going to get elected unless they can actually present a meaningful plan. I know it's tough, but you have to be pragmatic in politics.
You're speaking pretty tough language there, Nico. I think you're going to upset some people with your opinion there. What I'll say is that I kind of wish the Conservatives just wouldn't play these games. I understand that it's necessary because some issues are so grandiose, and so the climate change debate is one that is basically arguing that everyone in the world is going to die if we don't do something about this. So the stakes are pretty high. But what I don't understand, and what I wish there was more focus on, is that what exactly are we doing here? We have all these regulations. We're getting rid of straws and trying to be climate neutral by whatever year, 2050 or something. But we're bending over backwards and breaking our backs to go from what? Right now, Canada's like 1.4% of global emissions, which is pretty high for a small country. But, sometimes you have to you have to weigh out what's important. But we're breaking our backs to go what, to 1.3% of global emissions. I mean, there's a lot that you kind of have to wonder about. And I don't know. It's a kind of a bleak subject, man. I don't know. I'm not overly optimistic about how the Conservatives handle this one, I guess, is where I'm just going to leave that off. Well, thank you for watching. If you want, you can give us a like on our Facebook page. Go into the links below. You really got to do that, or else this show is done. I'm not even joking. You got to like our Facebook page so that we can gauge how many people actually like our show. Make sure you go and give us a donation if you can on your PayPal. $5 means the world to us. Buy a t-shirt. We got lots of t-shirts. We didn't have a contest this week. We'll probably do another one next week. Buy a mug. We saw a couple of you bought a CBC Sucks mugs out there. That's really cool. Buy a t-shirt. I swear the t-shirts are very comfy. I'm not wearing one this week. And just, again, thank you for watching. Give a like, subscribe, hit the bell button. Make sure you check out all the content we have. We have a great interview coming up that I'm actually not allowed to say, but you keep an eye on our channel. We have good stuff coming up on the channel. So thank you very much for watching and have a good week.